Greetings, true believers. Well, our look at Phase 3 of the MCU now continues on with Thor Ragnarok. 2 years after the Battle of Sokovia, Thor is imprisoned by the fire demon Surtur, who reveals that Thor's father, Odin, is no longer in Asgard. He explains that the realm will soon be destroyed during the prophesied Ragnarok, when Surtur unites his crown with the eternal flame that burns in Odin's vault. Thor frees himself, defeats Surtur, and takes his crown, believing he has prevented Ragnarok. Thor returns to Asgard to find Heimdall gone and his estranged brother Loki posing as Odin. After exposing Loki, Thor forces him to help find their father, and with directions from Stephen Strange at the Sanctum Sanctorum New York City, they locate Odin in Norway. Odin explains that he is dying. Ragnarok is imminent, and despite Thor's efforts to prevent it, and his passing will free his firstborn child Hela from a prison she was sealed in long ago. Hela was the leader of Asgard's armies, conquering the 9 realms with Odin, but Odin imprisoned her and wrote her out of history after fearing that she would become too ambitious and powerful. Odin dies as Thor and Loki look on, and Hela appears, destroying Thor's hammer Mjolnir. She pursues the two as they attempt to flee through the Bifrost Bridge, forcing them out into space. Arriving in Asgard, she defeats his army and kills the Warriors 3. She then resurrects the ancient dead who once fought with her, including her general Fenris, and appoints the Asgardian Scourge as her executioner. Hela plans to use the Bifrost to expand Asgard's empire, but Heimdall sneaks in, takes the sword that controls the Bifrost, and begins hiding other Asgardians. Thor crash lands on Sakaar, a garbage place surrounded by wormholes. A slave trader designated Scarpa 142 subdues him with an obedience disc and sells him as a gladiator to Sakaar's ruler, the Grand Master, with whom Loki has already ingratiated himself. Thor recognizes 142 as a Valkyrie, one of a legendary force of female warriors who were killed fighting Hela eons ago. Thor is forced to compete in the Grand Master's Contest of Champions, facing his old friend Hulk. Summoning lightning, Thor gets the upper hand, but the Grandmaster sabotages the fight to ensure Hulk's victory. Still enslaved after the fight, Thor attempts to convince Hulk and 142 to help him save Asgard, but neither is willing. He soon manages to escape the palace and finds the Quinjet that brought Hulk to Sakaar. Hulk follows Thor to the Quinjet, where a recording of Tasha Romanoff causes him to transform back into Bruce Banner for the first time since Sokovia. The Grandmaster orders 142 and Loki to find Thor and Hulk, but the pair come to blows and Loki forces her to relive the deaths of her Valkyrie companions at the hands of Hela. Designed to help Thor, she takes Loki captive. Unwilling to be left behind, Loki provides the group with the means to steal one of the Grandmaster's ships. They liberate the other gladiators who, incited by 2 aliens named Korg and Meek, stage a revolution. Loki again attempts to betray his brother, but Thor anticipates this and incapacitates him, leaving him behind, where Korg, Meek, and the gladiators soon find him. Thor, Banner, and 142 escape through a wormhole to Asgard. Hela's force attack Heimdall and the remaining Asgardians in pursuit of the sword that controls the Bifrost. Banner transforms into Hulk again, defeating Fenris, while Thor and 142 fight Hela and her warriors. Loki and the gladiators survive to rescue the citizens, and repentant Scourge sacrifices himself to enable their escape. Thor, facing Hela, loses his right eye and then has a vision of Odin that helps him realize only Ragnarok can stop her. He sends Loki to retrieve Surtur's crown and place it in the eternal flame. Surtur is reborn and destroys Asgard, killing Hela as the refugees flee. Aboard the Grandmaster's spaceship, Thor, now king, reconciles with Loki and decides to take his people to Earth. In the mid-credits scene, they are intercepted by a large spacecraft. In a post-credits scene, the overthrown Grandmaster is confronted by his former subjects. Dun dun dun. So now let's take a look at the production of this movie, beginning with the development. While promoting the release of Thor: The Dark World in October 2013, Chris Hemsworth expressed willingness to portray Thor for as long as people wanted more, and he was contracted for another Thor film and 2 more Avengers films. Producer Kevin Feige stated the next Thor would build from elements at the end of The Dark World. In January 2014, Marvel announced that Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost will write the screenplay for a 3rd film, with Feige again producing. The story was being outlined in July. At the end of October 2014, Feige announced that the film would be titled Thor Ragnarok, with a scheduled release date of July 28, 2017. Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston were set to return as Thor and Loki, respectively. Hemsworth earned $15 million for the film. Feige added that the film would be very important in Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and also confirmed that, in the context of the film, the word Ragnarok means the end of all things. He felt that people would not read into that title alone. What the movie is going to be. In February 2015, Marvel pushed back the release to November 3rd, 2017. That April, Feige was expecting a draft for the film soon. A month later, he stated that director, additional screenwriter, and further casting announcements would be revealed toward the end of the summer, with filming set for June 2016. The Dark World director Alan Taylor explained that he would not be returning, as the Marvel experience was particularly wrenching because I was sort of given absolute freedom while we were shooting, and then in post-production turned into a different movie. So that is something I hope to never repeat and don't wish upon anyone else. During the 2015 San Diego Comic-Con International, J.M. Alexander said that she would prize her role as Sif in a very pivotal part of the film. By October 2015, Taika Waititi had entered negotiations to direct Thor Ragnarok. Other directors under consideration included Ruben Fleischer, Rob Letterman, and Rostam Marshall Thurber. Marvel presented the prospective directors with the 10 different ideas that we had for the movie, asking them all to come back with a clear picture of what the film should be. Waititi created a sizzle reel for the tone and some joke stuff, using clips from other films, including Big Trouble in Little China. Despite being a discouraged practice within the company, Marvel wanted Waititi's reel to be amazing, particularly its use of Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song for the score, which Feige felt defined what Taika was going to do with this. The song was later used in the film itself and for marketing it. And while he decided to pursue directing the film, after seeing in 2012 that he had interest in big features where the art of the project was sacrificed for profit, Waititi said he felt like a guest in Marvel's universe, but with the creative freedom to do what I want. Waititi was confirmed as director of the film by multiple news outlets later in October. The same month, Mark Ruffalo was also finalizing a deal to reprise his role as Bruce Banner/Hulk from previous MCU films, which was confirmed shortly after. Hulk was last seen at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron, traveling in a Quinjet, which was originally planned to be shown flying near Saturn. Feige explained that this was changed to an Earth-based location to leave Hulk's fate ambiguous and dispel rumors that a film based on Planet Hulk was in development, since Marvel Studios had no plans to adapt the storyline at the time. According to executive producer Brad Winderbaum, the idea to include Hulk at Ragnarok came early on in development, when the production team looked at the Planet Hulk storyline and felt that it was a no-brainer to integrate Hulk into the Thor franchise, exploring the idea of a planet where there's gladiatorial games as the Thor predicament. That storyline was a really cool idea to us. Feige further explained that initial discussions have been focused on doing something totally different with Thor, and that centered on continuing the relationship with Loki and ideas for Hela, Valkyrie, Balder, and Beta Ray Bill. But we were like, we need something big. This turned to discussing Thor going into space, and jokingly calling it Planet Thor, which led to including Hulk in the film and revealing that he ultimately went to space at the end of Age of Ultron. Also in October, Australia's Minister for Foreign Affairs Julie Bishop announced that filming would take place in the country, exclusively throughout the state of Queensland, including at Village Roadshow Studios in Oxenford, Gold Coast. According to Premier Anastasia Polizuk, sorry if I mispronounced that, the production was to spend over $100 million in Queensland and employ 750 Queenslanders. Hemsworth had asked Marvel to produce the film in his home country of Australia. At the end of November 2015, Stellan Skarsgård, who portrayed Alex Selvig in the previous Thor films, said he was contracted to appear should Marvel want to include him, but he was uncertain at the time if they did. He later confirmed that he would not appear in Thor Ragnarok. The next month, Sony Folsom was hired to work on the script, and Cate Blanchett entered final negotiations to join the cast. And now on to pre-production. In January 2016, with the film beginning pre-production, Ruffalo described it as a road movie and indicated that additional filming would take place in Sydney. Waititi stated that he was going to work on the script a little bit, mainly adding humor to the screenplay, with Eric Pearson joining the project to rewrite the screenplay. Pearson felt joining presented many challenges, as there were so many puzzle pieces already there, such as having Blanchett as Hela, who was confirmed in the role a month later, including Hulk, Valkyrie, and Scourge that he was asked to assemble. Pearson was told not to be restrained by anything of the previous films, and Waititi asked him to make the film fun and have Thor be the coolest character. Alexander said in early March that she was no longer sure if she would appear in the film due to scheduling conflicts with her television series Blind Spot. She later indicated that this may not be the case, but ultimately was unable to appear in the film due to the conflict. Steph does appear as a character in the play based on the events of The Dark World, portrayed by Charlotte Nickdow. In April, Tessa Thompson was cast as Valkyrie, with Natalie Portman now returning from the previous films as love interest Jane Foster. Marvel never asked the screenwriters to include Earth-based characters from the previous films, and Feige said that Foster and Thor have broken up between films. In May, Marvel confirmed Blanchett and Thompson for the film, announcing the casting of Jeff Goldblum as Grandmaster and Carl Urban as Scourge, and revealed that Idris Elba and Anthony Hopkins will reprise their respective roles of Heimdall and Odin from the previous films. Later in June, Paul Joux and Marvel Studios executive David Grant announced that filming would begin on July 4, 2016, with Widow Workshop creating props for the film. Before the sets for Marvel's Doctor Strange were demolished, Waititi wrote and filmed a scene for Ragnarok where Thor meets Benedict Cumberbatch as Stephen Strange. Marvel and Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson felt the scene was kind of perfect to show Strange join the wider MCU, so the scene also appears during the credits of Doctor Strange. Feige noted that Thor Ragnarok would primarily take place in the cosmos rather than on Earth, a departure from the previous Thor films. He expanded by saying, "Totally geographically, there are a lot of different planets outside of the 9 realms that we visit in the film." Waititi consulted with theoretical physicist Clifford Johnson on space travel. Johnson viewed early drafts of the script and gave Waititi ideas that could wink at some of the classic old Thor stuff. Johnson previously consulted on the second season of the MCU television series Agent Carter. Astronomer physicist Adam Frank was also a consultant on the film, advising on wormholes and interstellar travel. Comic artist and Thor co-creator Jack Kirby was one of Waititi's major visual inspirations for the film. Winterbaum also called Walt Simonson's Ragnarok story arc an inspiration for really fun elements, both stylistically and narratively, as well as Thor God of Thunder by Jason Aaron, which was the inspiration for Hell's design and abilities. Waititi said the planet Sakaar, which is featured in the Planet Cult storyline, was the biggest shift for the film and these characters, with Winterbaum describing it as the toilet of the universe, surrounded by wormholes that have been spitting things out into this place for eons. Also featured is Methuselah, one of the 9 realms, ruled by Surtur. Production designer Dan Hanna described it as a Dyson sphere, with the realm drawing power out of a dying star to enlarge its inhabitants. Hanna hoped to give Asgard more of a humanity than in previous films, by adding smaller building perspectives to help the realm seem more practical and utilitarian. For Sakar's gladiator arena, Hanna looked at Roman gladiators, but differentiated from previous similar ideas by going all alien with it. The arena is surrounded by standing-up bleachers. Waititi said that the film will reinvent the franchise, as a lot of what we're doing with the film is, in a way, kind of dismantling and destroying the old idea and rebuilding in a way that's fresh. Everyone's got a slightly new take on their characters, so that way, it feels like this is the first Thor. He added that he had seen the other films and respected them, but wanted to focus on making a standalone film because this could be the only time I could do this. I just want to make my version of Marvel film in the best way possible. This is something Hemsworth would hope for, looking to have a lighter tone of Ragnarok compared to the previous Thor films, especially the second one, similar to Guardians of the Galaxy. He said, I feel we had less of the sort of the naivete or fun or humor than the first Thor might have had. I wish we had more of that in the second movie. We've done Regal, we've done Shakespeare, and we've shown that. I think now it's time to go, okay, cool, let's try something different. Hemsworth continued that in order to prevent the character or film from becoming predictable, there was definitely a goal to do something unexpected. I think we want to get back to more of a sense of adventure and fun. The events of Ragnarok are set 4 years after the events of Thor the Dark World and 2 years after the events of Age of Ultron, and around the same time as the events of Captain America's Civil War and Spider-Man Homecoming, with Linderbaum noting that things happen on top of each other now in Phase 3. The events of Ragnarok also set up Avengers Infinity War. Hemsworth spoke to Infinity War directors Anthony and Joe Russo before receiving the script for Ragnarok to see how it linked to Infinity War. He said Ragnarok definitely bleeds nicely into those films. Linderbaum likened Ragnarok's impact on the larger MCU to that of Captain America the Winter Soldier, so it would break down ideas regarding Asgard that were previously established similar to how Winter Soldier broke down S.H.I.E.L.D. And now on to the filming. Principal photography began on July 4, 2016, under the working title Creature Report at Village Roadshow Studios in Oxford, Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia, exclusively using all 9 of the studio's sound stages. Additional filming was occurred throughout the state of Queensland, including Tamborine National Park. The Brisbane Central Business District, where filming took place from August 22nd to the 25th, was used to double as New York City. Javier Ogorezorob, sorry if I mispronounced that, served as cinematographer on the film, describing his work of the film as a rare combination of satisfaction and frustration, feeling he was mostly there to serve as the director and visual effects supervisor, but felt very happy to have been able to respond to such incredible technical requirements. Later in July, regarding the film's buddy-style comedy nature, Waititi said the script had changed from then and it was still unclear what the final film would look like, but there are buddy elements to it between Thor and Hulk. It's soon to be a 70s-80s sci-fi fantasy and the most out there of all the Marvel movies, with the tone closest to that of Big Trouble in Little China. Inspiration for the road trip aspect included the film 48 Hours with Neil and I and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Waititi also asked the heads of each department to watch Flash Gordon before beginning work. Concept art released at San Diego Comic-Con 2016 revealed that the character Fenris Wolf would appear. By August, over 100 construction workers were given termination notifications, with some complaining that they had been promised work until October or November 2016, and that New Zealand crew members were receiving preferential treatment over the Australian locals. However, Premier Polishuk stated that the work for set builders is simply finished, and that other jobs will become available as actors arrive for filming. Sets constructed for the film were for Sakaar, including Grandmaster's Palace and surrounding junkyard, as well as Asgard, based on segs of the previous Thor films. The interior of the Avenger Quinjet, which was built for the Avengers, was shipped to Australia. Waititi, who was Maori, made hiring Indigenous and Aboriginal Australians, along with New Zealanders, a priority for the various departments, saying, "It's a responsibility you have to the Indigenous people. You're coming to a country and you're bringing money into the economy and creating jobs, but I think you have an even bigger responsibility to look after the people that have less opportunities." He stated that having these people on the crew feels very much like family and helps me calm down and makes me feel relaxed. The Indigenous and Aboriginals were hired as part of an initiative by Screen Australia's Indigenous Department, whose mission is to give Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders a foot in the door of the film industry. In mid-September 2016, concept art seen during SIFA's indicated Midgard Serpent would appear, and that Sifa and the Warriors 3, allies of Thor in the previous 2 films, would be addressed in Ragnarok. Toward the end of the month, Sam Neill, who worked with Waititi and Hunt for the Wilder People, revealed he had a role in the film. Shortly after, Waititi teased the inclusion of the characters Korg, who Waititi portrays through motion capture, and Meek, who was not portrayed by an actor as he does not speak of the film, and is depicted as a larva-like creature with cybernetic legs and arms. In mid-October, Waititi revealed that new camera technology had been used for a shot in the film, that they'd hoped to include John C. Reilly's Nova Corman Roman Day in the film, but there was no real way to pull it off. Principal photography wrapped on October 28, 2016. Second unit filming took place in Dirk Hartog Island off the coast of Western Australia and the South Island of New Zealand. According to Waititi, 80% of the dialogue of the Ragnarok was improvised, in order to create a very loose and collaborative mood among the cast, and his attempt to replicate the tone and sensibility of his previous films. He stated, "My style of working is often be behind the camera, right next to the camera, yelling words at people like, 'Say this, say it this way.'" Wow. And now on to the post-production. In January 2017, it was announced that Pearson will receive sole screenwriter credit on the film, with story credit to Kyle Yost and Folsom. These credits were later updated the following September, with Pearson as the screenwriter and story credit for Kyle and Yost. Folsom took issue with Marvel marketing the film with these credits, noting the Writers Guild of America had yet to determine the final credits for the film. She stated that Marvel had given her a story credit on the film, but it was denied by the WGA due to the regulation that a maximum of 2 individuals can receive story credit, with an allowance for a writing team to count as one individual. Pearson and team of Kyle and Yost received the story credit on Ragnarok. Folsom admitted that she planned to appeal the decision, and that Marvel has been supportive of her throughout her attempt to receive credit. By the end of the month, the writing credits are updated once again, this time simply crediting Pearson, Kyle, and Yost as screenwriters. In February 2017, Rachel House said she had a small role in the film, having worked with Waititi before. Additional filming took place in Atlanta in July 2017 over 3 weeks, including filming post-credit scenes. One of these scenes introduces the spaceship Sanctuary 2, which belongs to Thanos in Avengers Infinity War, while the other, shown at the end of the credits, features the Grandmaster. Goldblum and Waititi improvised multiple versions of the latter scene. One unused version involved the singing of the Sakarian national anthem, which was made up on the spot. Also filmed in Atlanta was the completion of a sequence where Asgardian actors perform a play based on the events of the Dark World. Neil appears in the sequence as the Odin actor, and Hemsworth's brother Luke portrays the Thor actor. Explaining the sequence, Waititi said, "If I was Loki and I was really Asgard, I would write a play about myself and force everyone to go see it. Chase the details of the play and get a huge celebrity to play myself." For the Loki actor, they wanted someone good and someone who's funny, and Chris Hemsworth suggested that Matt Damon, whom we knew personally, take on the role. Damon was in New York City at the time and flew to Atlanta just to shoot the cameo on a lark. Also changed during reshoots was the location of the sequence where Thor and Loki find Odin on Earth, and how subsequently destroys Mjolnir. Originally set in a New York alley, Waititi decided that the environment was distracting from the emotions of the sequence. The location was changed to Norway, which Waititi felt gave more weight to the scenes. It made Odin's storyline more authentic, and also the characters and the audience to chill out for a second and have that moment, because the rest of the film basically just runs at a clip. By the time reshoots for the film were completed, the film had been cut down from Waititi's initial version of 2 hours and 40 minutes to around 90 minutes, with that expected to increase slightly with the newly filmed scenes. However, after the film's 2017 Comic-Con panel, it was decided to add back a lot of the jokes that had been removed, with the runtime being 2 hours and 10 minutes. Joel Negra and Zane Baker served as editors on the film. Waititi described the process of deciding exactly what jokes to keep as very tricky. Sometimes it would be funny in the beginning of the film and then not funny at all, or was funny in the wrong places and in the end, we just had to keep testing jokes and testing parts of the film. Ragnarok also clarifies that Infinity Gauntlet scene in Thor was a fake. Feige expanded, saying they'd been included in Thor as an Easter egg, since Marvel Studios was working on the Avengers and trying to put that all together for the conclusion of Phase 1. However, shortly after the Avengers release and the studio began to solidify plans for Avengers Infinity War, they realized that the Gauntlet scene in Thor could not be the actual one, creating an internal theory that it was fake. This resulted in the scene in Ragnarok, which was created just to have the opportunity to call it a fake. And now on to the visual effects. Visual effects for the film were created by Industrial Light and Magic's San Francisco and Vancouver studios, while from Base FX, Animatrix, and Virtuos. Framestore, Method Studios Vancouver, Digital Domain, Rising Sun Pictures, Luma Pictures, D-Negative, Allura, Image Engine, Trickster, The Secret Lab, Whiskey Tree Inc., Fin Designs Plus Effects, and Perception. Pre-visualization work was provided by the Third Floor and Day for Night. Luma Pictures produced over 200 shots in 8 sequences, particularly for the characters Korg, receiving assets from Framestore, and Meek. Method Studios provided over 450 shots, including Thor's opening fight against Surtur and Methuselah and Hela's fight against the Asgardian guards. D-Negative worked on over 190 shots, creating the environment for the planet Sakaar, including its junkyard landscape and wormholes, with the wormholes also created through a collaboration with Digital Domain. The film's main out-and-in title sequence was designed by Perception. ILM, who worked on previous incarnations of the Hulk, had to add much more detail to the character's facial features in Ragnarok due to the Hulk's increased dialogue. ILM visual effects supervisor Chad Weeb explained that Ruffalo's expressions were captured fresh for the film using Medusa, a performance capture technology. With 90 different expressions captured, ILM built an entirely new library that would allow Hulk to cover a full range of normal human visual characteristics. To help create the Hulk, a person on set was covered in green body paint and would replicate the intended motions of the character to aid the visual effects artists. Additionally, stunt actor Paul Lowe, who was under 5 feet tall, stood in for Hemsworth during some of his interactions with Hulk so that Hulk's stuntmen would be proportionally correct. In some instances when Thor and Hulk interacted, a digital double was used for Thor, also created by ILM, to have greater flexibility for the shots. ILM worked on all the Hulk moments in the film outside of the final fight sequence, which was completed by Framestar using ILM's assets, as Framestar was primarily responsible for rigging that sequence. Framestar completed nearly 460 shots, which featured digital doubles of Thor and Hela, Fenris, Gorgmeek, and the giant Surtur at the end of the film, and over 9,000 buildings for Asgard, based on assets D-Negative had from the Dark World, resulting in over 263 character, vehicle, prop, and crowd rigs. Rising Sun Pictures produced more than 170 visual effects shots for Thor Ragnarok. They worked on the Valkyrie flashback sequence, with the sequence's surreal ethereal appearance achieved through a combination of motion capture, computer graphics, a 900 FPS high-speed frame rate, and a special 360-degree lighting rig containing 200 strobe lights to bathe the scene, and undulating patterns of light and shadow. Rising Sun also helped create the various CGI aspects of Hela, such as her hair rope transition to her horns, and her original introduction in New York City. Following the reshoots, Image Engine completed the new Norway introduction since Rising Sun was focused on the palace fight by then. And now finally onto the music. By August 2016, Mark Mothersbaugh was hired to score the film. The synthesized score is influenced by the work of Jean-Michel Jarre. Waititi stated he would have asked the band Queen to work on the soundtrack for the film if their lead singer Freddie Mercury was still alive, because the film was a cool, bold, colorful cosmic adventure, which would have suited the feel of the band. Additional music featured in the film included Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin and Pure Imagination from the film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Patrick Doyle's themes from Thor and Brian Tyler's themes from the Dark World and Adventure Stage of Ultron, as well as Joe Harnell's The Lonely Man theme from the Incredible Hulk series, are also used in the film. Hollywood Records released the film's soundtrack digitally on October 20th, 2017, and physically on November 10th, 2017. So overall, I really, really like this film. As a matter of fact, this is hands down my favorite Thor movie. As of right now, but we'll see if that changes after Love and Thunder comes out, so there you go. So overall, I give Thor Ragnarok 5 arc reactors out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in later as we take a next MCU film, Black Panther. So until then, in the words of the late great Stan Lee, Excelsior!